Welcome to the Power and Destiny podcast with me, Ahmed Salim. Fate, Qismat, Qadar is a concept that's so complicated. It's intertwined with our day-to-day lives and our year-to-year progression. But what does it really mean? How does it actually work? This concept's fascinated me since I've started my journey on business and since I started my journey in the roller coaster that we have when it comes to building ventures, making investments, and dealing with personal situations. It's been a couple of years now that I've been designing a podcast, and it's taken me a bit of time, and the reason for that is because I always want to make sure that there's value for anybody listening to any type of content that I put out there. And Power and Destiny as a concept has been something I've wanted to talk about. And so this podcast series is all about framing successful people, my guests, in the light and in between power and destiny and how that's played a part in their lives. We all know that random thing that happened which changed our lives, or the random thing that took place that changed the course that our lives was going on. These are the elements and the aspects of my guests' lives that I'm going to be diving into and exploring at a deeper level, a psychological level, an emotional level, and see how this has impacted their lives and made them super successful, and in some cases achieve things that many people just simply dream of achieving. So it's a pleasure that I have today my good friend Fahad Habib from Boost, a powerhouse in consulting and management consulting, and he's given me a quick smirk as I've just said that. But it's an absolute pleasure to have him here with us today on this podcast, on this episode, because we're going to be diving deep into his world and exploring his world together on this podcast. And I'm super excited to have it. So we're going to crack on with it. Assalamu alaikum, Fahad. Hope you're well.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Honestly, man, I don't need that type of introduction, man. Like, if anyone watches this because they may have seen me elsewhere, they'll know that I don't deserve that introduction.
No. For me, we've known each other for so many years now.
Alhamdulillah.
We've constantly spoken. We've shared ideas. We've done work together. And it's always been a pleasure every time we've interacted. I know we've said for a long time we would sit down and have a conversation that almost the world could see, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really, really looking forward to this.
Bro, jazakallah khair, man. Like, I have a lot of good ideas, but I'm very bad at executing them. So I'm just glad you put this all together. and the audience can't see what I can see, but this is proper, man. This is for real, man. MashaAllah.
Well, that's a shout out to Zulfikar Faraz, who is being the legend behind the scenes, who sorted everything. He's been working with me and been so patient with me putting this all together, and really this is his effort, and so I need to give him a big shout out. And as we record more of these and with the different guests, he's definitely the person who deserves the praise for that.
Big shout out, bro. Well done, mashallah.
So we're gonna get straight into this.
Let's go.
Part of our conversation is going to be just stage by stage. I'm going to ask you some questions, slowly tease out of you different type of scenarios that have come through on your lives, and just share with everybody and myself especially like what that meant to you in those scenarios. So the first and foremost thing that I'm keen to understand, and I think is good for the audience to understand as well, is just to give a brief background of your journey so far.
So, okay. The journey, obviously, as with most people, starts kind of with university and kind of figuring out what you want to do at university, then to kind of help you in your career. And to be brutally honest, I was that guy who just got passed through a GCSEs, just got through A levels, and didn't take university serious. But whilst I was at university, there were certain things that I did that no one else was doing. Everyone was studying hard. A couple of the friends were going out doing all sorts of madness. There's things that you're kind of typically supposed to do at university. I was hustling, bro. I was hustling, and it was just inherent within me. So what I started off, so I was supposed to be studying kind of business management, right? right? And accounting, I think. Businessman, it's such a long time ago, bro. It's like 20 odd years ago now. So I was supposed to be, but really what I was doing is first thing I did, I got my student loan and I bought a motorbike. And then I was like, I don't have any money now to actually pay for my fees. So then what I did, and one of my very, very close friends used to work at Burberry. And this is like, and we're talking 20 years ago, and he kind of, he got me access to the Burberry sample sale. So what I did is I borrowed some money, went to the Burberry sample sale, and I bought everything. And as a function of that, I went onto eBay and I sold everything. And then I actually made money to pay for university. So whilst everyone was studying and doing the whole thing seriously and stuff, I was just there making money. And alhamdulillah, you know, it was halal. I mean, tax aside, it was halal. But you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of where I started. And that really does summarize who I am as a person. So even after I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was thinking, you know what? I'm just going to start hustling like I've done always, man. And just on the way here, subhanAllah, bro, I was talking to one of my close friends. And he, at the time, after we graduated, he joined Goldman Sachs. And I said, what's a Goldman Sachs? He's like, bro, it's an investment bank. And I was like, what the hell is an investment bank? All I know is Barclays, Halifax, High Street. You know, that's all I know. And it was a bit of an awakening. So after graduation, I just about graduated, you know, low 2.2. And I was thinking, that's it. I need to get to this city. What's happening in London, man? That's where the money is. So I managed to get a job at multiple places consistently. I won't go into the details, but I got fired like 3 times for lying on my CV, for doing all types of silly stuff. And then eventually I got a job in BlackRock. And again, it wasn't like a planned thing. I was just hustling. And at the time, this same motorcycle that I had, I would literally wake up in the morning and I made looking for a job in the city a full-time job. There were a couple of job boards at the time, and every day, man, I'd just spend hours speaking to recruitment consultants saying, does anyone need someone like on a temporary basis? And that was kind of my transition into the kind of professional banking, finance, professional services world. And my thing was just survival, because I had bad grades. I wasn't very good at any job, to be honest, and it was just about survival. And then alhamdulillah, I managed to get into BlackRock. Don't ask me how. Actually, you can ask me how. It was through a recruitment consultant. They needed someone for 2 weeks. I was like, yep, I'll go. I ended up staying there for 2 years. And during that process, that's when the financial crash happened, you know, 2009, when the whole world went mad, upside down. And then based upon that, I was like, look, and it's a crazy story. I was studying Islamic finance at the time. And that was going to be the big thing, you know, 2009, that was going to be the big thing. And I just used that. I started studying the IFQ, which was the only kind of Islamic finance real qualification at the time, on my, you know, off my own back. No one helped me do it. I wanted to do it. And then in kind of after 2 years of BlackRock, it was Barclays, they got acquired by BlackRock. I just thought, you know, I want to head to Saudi Arabia, man. And it was kind of driven by this desire to want to do Islamic finance. If you're going to do Islamic finance, surely you've got to be in an Islamic country. And I somehow, again, through a friend who had just joined KPMG in Saudi Arabia, that's how I got to Saudi Arabia, man. So yeah, it's I'm not your typical, okay, well, listen, this guy was very successful at university and education and he killed it and he had that traditional career. No, man, I did the kind of the graft to, and it's not like a graft to brag about. It's just I didn't have any other options. My other option, it was either join BlackRock and literally I was speaking to this to my friend on the way here. It was BlackRock or Costco. A management accountant in Costco or work as an associate in BlackRock. It's a no-brainer. So, alhamdulillah, man. It's just that whole period was just me exploring, you know, the corporate world and so on. None of my family historically have worked in the city. My father was, you know, local, you know, owned a small takeaway and a mini cab office, and you know, so we were local people. We weren't like going to the city was like an experience, you know. So alhamdulillah, that's kind of what got me to Saudi, and that's when oh wow, people pay for this type of consulting advice, and okay, how does it work? Who are the customers? what are they buying, and so on and so forth. So
So just before we go into that part, so I think this is a really interesting segue. So just before we get to Saudi, obviously, because that's going to be a part that we obviously have so much in common and we're going to be discussing a lot, but and we go into the specific consultancy companies that you've set up now, but this is what's really interesting to me, because throughout that kind of introduction, you've mentioned a number of times that somehow this happened. Somewhere this recruitment agent came. Somehow that you were able to, get a job in BlackRock, something that you never expected. And that's exactly what's fascinating to me, is how there's this somehow, which is basically qadr, right? This 100%. Is what fate, you can say, right? And so it's a nice kind of point to move into, what does actually power and destiny mean to you as an individual, right?
So it's I mean, you're 100% right, bro. Like, in my life, there's so many things when you're kind of going through it, you can't figure out why these things are happening. But when you kind of look at it in hindsight and you're looking at it backwards, it's easier to connect the dots. How did things happen? Why did things happen? And so on. But if I can say there's one constant in my life, which is, and it might seem a bit cliche, it's just, instilled within us from my parents, which is, you look after mom, dad, and 2 brothers. That's your priority. If you're good to them and you're getting some basic things under your belt, a bit of salah and just a bit of, just that grounding within, and the stuff that we as a family did well, it's not necessarily the kind of, the hard doctrine Islamic thing. It's just it's the part where religion and culture kind of overlap. So, just looking after people, do unto people how you'd want to be dealt with yourself, and just being honest and just hardworking. These things are cultural, but I think a lot of people dismiss these as, these things are just normal, but they are inherently within our deen as well. Yep. So, and despite never ever really being like super religious, these things are cultural, but they are forms of ajr, which for me, even now, alhamdulillah, 2 businesses, multi-million dollars and stuff like that, this is still inherent within the essence of the businesses, because they are that important. As with 20 years later, it's easy to say, but that's how I ascribe that the success that was then. When I look back now, it could only have been that. It couldn't really have been anything else, because I wasn't really doing anything else, man. There was just about an internet then. That's me. I'm crazy old, right? There was just about an internet then. There was no social media then. So it was just qadr, blessings from parents, being good to other people, just getting on with what you had to do, which is, and I think everyone needs this to some extent.
Yeah.
They need someone like a friend, and this is, like your mom and dad will say this, but you don't ever really take it serious. But, the quality of your friends really does dictate a lot of what happens. So even qadr is, the qadr starts from the advice of your parents, but acting upon it as well. So my friend joined Goldman Sachs. Now, you might have a different opinion on Goldman Sachs, but you can't deny after university, straight after, alhamdulillah, mashallah. So, so that's what it is for me, man. It's keep it simple and just get on with it.
And it's really interesting because qadr and this concept is so personal and different to everybody else, and it's in line. And we're not gonna unpack qadr, power, destiny from a religious or spirituality perspective. And the reason why is because personally I'm just not qualified to do that, and that's why this has always been this concept, and that's why it's taken so long to start having this conversation, is because I want to make sure that I'm giving the respect it deserves on a religious level, and we will speak, and there'll be certain scholars that will be joining us as guests and really unpacking that from that perspective. But on an individual level, what you've just said is really interesting, how you felt your family environment was a factor to that. And personally, one of the things that I have always found, and as I've reflected upon what power and destiny means to me, is you have a a certain amount of power,
Yeah.
but then a point comes where you're powerless. And then that's when
Absolutely.
destiny takes over.
Just on that point alone, bro, the first 3 jobs, and I'll tell you what they were. So the first job I got out of university, believe it or not, was with KPMG in the UK. And after 1 week, I got fired. So I was like, this is my destiny to get into KPMG, and like that was supposed to, and it was like, I was on cloud 9, and it was the best thing. And then when they fired me after 5 days, because I was an idiot. There's no denying it. I was an idiot. They deserved to fire me. Like they were in the right for firing me. My world came to an end, and at that point, I felt powerless, man. But then I just did the same thing again. I started hustling, started doing exactly the same thing I did, and then I got another job. This time. With another consulting firm. It's not like an audit firm called, I think it was called Smith and Williamson. Again, I got fired. Then I got another job, but this time with an investment bank, a Japanese investment bank called Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation. I think this one I lasted, how much? I think 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Sorry, got fired again. And so again, it was like a proper up and down roller coaster and so on, and feeling helpless, and then just having the kind of just the mindset of like, well, I've done it once, I can do it again type thing. And then from there, then I eventually got into BlackRock. So it's crazy, man. Like, absolutely, man. Like that feeling helpless is it helps some people, like it kicks their backside, or it just completely takes over people, and that's it, they give up.
So what is it? And again, I know we're going to go on to Saudi and Alpus and Boost, but what is it that drives you,
bro? Honestly, like, okay, subhanallah. And again, I don't want to make this religious, and I want to just make it apparent that I'm not super religious. Obviously, I pray, that I do my things, the obligations, I do that. I don't think that makes me religious, but I just think that makes me Muslim, right? But anyway, wallahi, bro, there were times in my life where the only thing we had was my mum, my dad, and my 2 brothers. Literally, no house, and some of my closest friends know this, like. There were times when it was like, where are we going to sleep tonight? And that sounds mad, and I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's rags to riches or anything like that, because there's definitely, the riches are still coming, inshallah. And the rags were nothing compared to some of the suffering that's ongoing right now, right? So, but at the time, bro, subhanallah, we're not talking. So I graduated when? I think it was in 2006. I think it was 2004, bro, homeless, right? And it was just this unity between my mum, my dad, and my 2 brothers. I had no choice, bro. Like, and it wasn't a choice like, oh my God, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll, murder, kill, do whatever. No, it was just, it was just tunnel vision. I had to make it work. And it was just, even to this day, having my brothers around me, my parents, alhamdulillah, man, that's the biggest blessing ever.
And you're the oldest.
I'm not. I'm the middle.
You're the middle.
My older brother's crazy. My younger brother, mashallah, he's doing his thing. He's a consultant as well, and he has a side hustle as well, mashallah, which a lot of people know about, but I didn't know. It's the Date Tree. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a date company,
awesome,
chocolate date stuff. Anyway, so mashallah. So he's doing well. My older brother works with me. He's a partner in our business, but I was the first one who kind of decided, I'm going to go into zone 1. I'm not going to just stick around the local area. And that, I don't know, man. Like when you're 23, early 20s, like you're fearless, man.
Yeah.
Like you don't, like, you're like, all right, I'm just going to keep doing this until I get somewhere. And, obviously I felt hopeless and I felt powerless. But even when you feel powerless, you can still be fearless,
Yeah.
So that's what it was, man. It was just, and I think there was a bit of rivalry with my friend as well, who was at Goldman's. I was like, I'm coming for you, bro. I'm gonna do this thing as well. So, because he, mashallah, first honors and all that stuff, and I was just about got through uni, having copied his dissertation.
So funny story on the Burberry thing, actually. So. When you were saying Burberry and eBay, that brought back some interesting memories for me, because when I was hustling again, same time, around uni time, or this was literally, just before uni when I, just found the internet, dial up, eBay.
Yeah.
So what I did is I found, you had this thing called eBay, obviously, and I could sell on it. And so what I did is then I started seeing, what can I sell? What can I sell? I came across this dodgy website, and I was like, this Burberry, this Burberry clothing is so cheap.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, I can sell this for so much more.
Yeah.
Obviously, being so naive, didn't realize it was fake.
Yeah.
So I listed actually, because I was like, will anyone buy this? Will it actually work? So before buying any of the fake Burberry, I listed something. I made an account on eBay, listed it, took photos, put it up there, and said, is someone ever going to buy this? Anyway, got an email from eBay. I was like, oh my gosh, someone's bought this, or someone wants to buy this. Banging. It was actually an infringement notice, because eBay sent me an email saying, this is fake, and we're going to take you to court. Now, I was like, I was like 19, 20, something like that. I pooped my pants, right? I was like, oh my gosh, my dad's going to kill me. I'm going to get taken to court. I sent them back an email, which was like, I'm really sorry. I didn't know it was fake. I didn't know. I was and so my Burberry eBay story, that was, as I was trying to hustle. And
just for the record, any of my former customers, it was 100% real Burberry. Me and him were not in business together. I did not have the same suppliers.
It was probably you I was looking at, that dodgy website. I was buying it from you, mate.
No refunds, 20-year policy, bro. That's it.
But so let's go into Arpus and then Boost, right? So like, what was Arpus's journey?
So, well, before Arpus's journey is a pretty, alhamdulillah, pretty successful career in what would be classified as kind of traditional consulting. So I started my traditional consulting career, so pure management consulting career in 2009 with KPMG Saudi Arabia. And I must say, it was one of the best experiences ever, man. Like, just getting up from London, and I remember going to Saudi Arabia, and I was thinking, man, it's going to be like Dubai. And it's crazy that I thought that, because I hadn't actually been to Dubai, but I just assumed it would be like, But I remember getting off the plane in Jeddah on the 6th of June. SubhanAllah, that's almost 15 years, right? Exactly 15 years ago. So, well, plus or minus a couple of days. But yeah, 6th of June 2009, I got off the airplane. I was wearing a leather jacket, and the Jeddah heat went, right? It kicked my backside, man. And I was like, that's the end of that leather jacket. Take that off immediately. And that was it, man. Like, that was my step into professional services. So moving away from kind of financial services, more towards professional services. And then, alhamdulillah, I mean, I was just surrounded by bros from the UK. I don't know how it happened, but there were so many bros from the UK, and whom I consider very, very dear friends of mine. And, some of them still work with KPMG. Most of them are somehow affiliated with Saudi Arabia. So yeah, when I got to KPMG, I was doing advisory work. Eventually there was a partner, because there was a partner that came from the UK, came to Saudi because they had won a huge project, and eventually he said, why are you working with this team? You should be working in my team. You've got a finance background. And that's what happened. And then eventually, I kind of started doing bigger projects with KPMG, more on the power and utility side of things, helping kind of governments decide how to build infrastructure, which is obviously important for every government in the world. And that kind of took me from, I joined as an analyst in 2009. Alhamdulillah, I left as a director. I was like one of the youngest directors in KPMG. So I kind of did pretty well career-wise, and if I had stuck with it, I would have done pretty well in the career kind of world. But around 2016 is when I kind of decided, look, well, if I can do this for KPMG, if I can win projects, if I can deliver projects, and everyone's happy with me management-wise because they know that I can, why can't I just do this for myself? And that's kind of what happened, man. And subhanallah, bro, going back to the whole power and destiny thing, and like, I don't know how this happened, bro, but it's mad. My younger brother got married before I did. And as a function of him getting married, he had brothers-in-law brother-in-laws before I did, right? And one of his brother-in-laws, shout out Shaheen, he joined some company that I'd never heard of, and I just realized it's actually a huge company. And they had won this huge mandate, and then he said to me, bro, do you build apps? And me being the hustler, I was like, yeah, of course I do, bro. I know exactly how to build an app, not knowing anything about technology. And basically, we concluded that project. I came out of it with circa $1 million. And, you know, I think I was in my early 30s at the time. So it was a question of, okay, well, I've got all this capital. Do I continue with my job and have nice, decent savings, or do I use this to build something? And then the kind of feeling of, well, I can do this on my own, and having the capital and the means to do it, that's what I did. And
what did that feel like at that moment where you knew that you were going to risk that capital to build something?
I swear to you, bro, it didn't even register. I was so naive, man. Like, to think, because at the time, bro, you know, and even to this day, alhamdulillah, bro, and this is one of the reasons I can truly, again, ascribe any success I have to this day, is because and I don't want to say I'm selfless. I still do lots of stupid things. I still buy lots of stupid things. But my thing has always been, mom and dad, okay. So even at this time, when I had made this money, I put my mom and dad in a lovely house in the UK. But I used to live in the absolute dump in Riyadh. And it was mad because I was like, I got $1 million. But I lived in the ghetto, bro. Like, I can't explain to you how crazy that was. And my mum and dad used to get worried. They're like, where do you live? And I was like, I just live in a normal place, right? So my thing was always looking after mum and dad. So it wasn't even a thought of, oh, you made this decision. I was just like, again, if I think about when I was at uni and I was hustling and doing all these things, and when I was trying to look for a job, I can't think of a moment in time when I thought, you know what, is this a risky thing, or is this a logical thing? I never had those moments. I just do it. And I think I can only think that in hindsight, because every time I make a stupid decision, that's normally the case, bro. I just do it. And it's not because I'm kind of special or anything. I don't know, my brain just doesn't work that way, which is funny because I get paid to tell people what to do. And my advice is always be logical, take your time, don't rush into it. But do as I say, don't do as I do.
But this is the interesting thing between a lot of people who've been quite successful is personal and business. They're very different psychological spectrums.
Oh man, absolutely.
And with these two different psychological spectrums, actually, you find that on a personal level, people will really think in a different way to how they think on a business level. Absolutely. So a business decision and a personal decision are on sometimes very opposite spectrums in terms of how they actually make that decision. And Absolutely. That, again, is very, very, very interesting to me.
Wallahi, bro, I genuinely, and I'm racking my brain as we talk, I'm genuinely thinking, bro, what were you thinking when you made these crazy decisions that you left? And I was at the point, it's not that I had recently become a director. I could argue now that maybe within 18 months of where I was, I would have made partner in KPMG. I'm sure if anyone from KPMG sees this, they'll be like, no, you wouldn't, you idiot. I would have, right? And that's because I'm selling work. Once you can do the work and then eventually you start selling it, if you can sell it consistently, you'll make partner. And I was at that point. But the question never arose, bro. I never thought, okay, well, I'm risking all of this, the opportunity cost. Nah. And it's funny because that's what I sell every single day. That's what I'm telling clients. Well, the opportunity cost of doing this is this. No, bro, it just didn't happen. It was just a case of opportunity. Yeah. And that was it. Just following, just chasing the kind of hustler's ambition. And it wasn't about becoming a millionaire. It wasn't about becoming ultra successful. It was just make it work, man. See if you can make it work.
So let's go into, I've got a few questions.
Sorry, just to end that point. In terms of Arpus, when I had that money, that's when I decided to build Arpus.
Okay.
That was it.
And then that way you just built that, and then Boost became obviously would you say it evolved out of Arpus because of market needs, or?
Well, this is, again, it's an interesting one, bro, because Arpus kicked off around 2018. And alhamdulillah, I won a project almost immediately. So it was good. and we were consistently winning projects with the Saudi government, primarily a little bit on the kind of private sector side, but mainly just government contracts, the stuff that you're seeing a lot of consulting firms do now. But the reason it was interesting is because that's kind of when Saudi started transforming. That's when the whole Vision 2030 thing came in. That's when, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, his changes, you started to feel them. And I remember, and this is stupid, like in terms of anchor points in my life, one of the big anchor changes, like, okay, things are really changing in Saudi Arabia, was like when women could drive. And it was like, tomorrow, Bukra, you can drive. It was like that. It was like, whoa, okay, maybe this stuff is serious. And then 2018, 19, amazing. 20 was shaping up to be an amazing year. And then COVID happened. And so the rationale to build Boost was not necessarily a market need. Our purpose was 100% market. Our purpose was, look, well, there's only about 6 or 7 big consulting firms. I can either subcontract work from them, or I can do work directly for the client. And that worked out lovely. But 2020, March, which is when kind of COVID really, really kicked off, I was on the flight back to London, and my daughter was just born, Sophia, and I was thinking, how am I going to make money sitting in London with clients in Saudi who want to see me? Obviously, no one knew about working from home. No one knew about Zoom. No one knew you could do this stuff on Google and stuff like that. Google Meets or Teams, and all that stuff was new. And it wasn't a market need to build Boost. It was my own need to build Boost, because otherwise I quit my job. I don't have a job anymore. So I'm stuffed. I've got to make something work. And that's kind of, that was the impetus to go back to kind of, okay, how can I build a name for this thing? And then that's when I started talking nonsense on LinkedIn. That's when I started just helping, doing training sessions for free. And that was, so ARPUS was still continuing, but much slower. And then Boost started kind of picking up, because it was kind of going against the grain. Everyone in consulting is suit and tie, and Fahad is there wearing a hat, wearing shorts, and then just talking nonsense on LinkedIn. And everyone's like, who's this guy? Why is he saying this stuff? Some people liked it. Some people were offended. I read a quote today, funnily enough, which was, what was the quote? It was something along the lines of, if no one hates your product or service, then no one's going to love it. So that's kind of where Boost kind of came into it. And it was really just an extension of my personality. Yeah, I do consulting. Yeah, I sell this stuff, this helping governments make big decisions. But genuinely, I'm an idiot, and I like being an idiot. I like being able to, make people laugh and have a good time. And, it's not just consulting always. So, and that's what Boost was. Yep. That's it.
So the kind of end part, and these are kind of quick fire, quote unquote, questions, right? So you can just kind of throw back to me almost the first thing that comes into your mind.
Let's do it.
And again, it's relative to obviously power and destiny. So first question is, when was your most powerless moment?
Probably when I got fired from KPMG. That's when I was just like, man.
And how did you get fired?
I got sent a voice note, and I was underground on the tube, and they said, by the way, KPMG asked for you not to come back on Monday.
Okay.
That was it. So, and I was like, what happened? Like, I'd never experienced being fired. I thought my life was sorted out at that point. I was on like £12 an hour, £15 an hour, something. I was on cloud 9. It was like the best time ever. And I was of the opinion that I could kind of, talk my way through it. They didn't give me the chance. They just said, do not let this guy come back on Monday. And that was at the point where I felt absolutely hopeless.
Okay, fine. Greatest fear?
Greatest fear is probably letting down my parents. And that's probably my greatest fear. Yeah.
Okay. Greatest comeback?
Ooh. Okay, this is really, really petty. But when I made director at KPMG, I did an intranet search for the guy who fired me from KPMG in the UK, and I was more senior than him. So that was like, I made it, Rocky Balboa, That was me, yeah.
Cool, I like that. Okay.
I'm petty. I'm an idiot.
No,
bro, I
no, that's
told
kind
you.
of cool. I like the
Yeah.
way that, because it's linked to the greatest powerlessness, right? You were,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. Greatest comeback. So, what are you inspired by?
Ah, that's it. I mean, look, I can't deny this, right? Wealth accumulation, not for the sake of wealth accumulation, for the sake of alhamdulillah, I've experienced when I can look after my parents. I've seen the good side of it, right? As long as you're not doing the madness, alhamdulillah, bro. Wealth accumulation just means you can spend more time with your family, your parents. You can let them go and hajj and do these things, like. So there's no denying there is a wealth accumulation part of it, but there's absolutely a part of it which is just helping people. If I get to ever sell my businesses and then I'm, up X million or whatever it is, I would like to just teach people. That's all I want from like post wealth. So it's yes, there is a commercial kind of monetary aspect to it, and then the second part is leaving some kind of ajr based, just helping people for the sake of helping people.
Awesome. So, as we come to the end of this episode and podcast, I think one of the things that I'd like you to kind of share is, again, framing this with power and destiny is like, there's a lot I expect a lot of young people. I know that I have an audience of very young people, young professionals who are trying to find their way, right? Who are trying to get comfortable with power and destiny. So from your own personal view, experience, share with them what that looks like. What should they, indicators, or how to try and get them to be a little bit more comfortable with the unknown.
I mean, look, everyone's journey is their own, right? What I would say, there should be some anchors and constants in your life. One of which is obviously having some relations, a great relationship with your parents, your siblings, having some level of having kind of the morality of let's call it any religion. I don't want to make this about Islam, but just having that as a North Star, as a guiding principle. That's a good part of it, because that helps you and just guidance on making big decisions in your life. I say this to some people, right? And I can't help make this about Islam, but one of the most powerful things we have when you're talking about power and destiny is the word alhamdulillah, right? Without the word alhamdulillah, you miss out on so much learning. So whenever they say, failure, and whenever they say, okay, something didn't work out, in order for us to extract what is a learning from that, whether it's positive or negative, it can be framed as positive as long as you're willing to say, alhamdulillah, it happened because Allah has decided that for it to be the way it is. What I would say for kind of young people, bro, is find a mentor for sure. Find someone who's been there, done that. But at the same time, what I would say as a kind of complete opposite of that is a lot of bros that you meet and just people you meet who are successful in their careers are very risk averse. And if I were risk averse, I would have just stuck it out with KPMG. I would have been doing well for myself, alhamdulillah, but it wouldn't have transitioned into like in entrepreneurship. So if entrepreneurship is the thing or eventual outcome you want to go to, it's about finding a balance between, meeting people who have good careers, but also meeting and greeting people who are entrepreneurs, having a diverse group of friends who will open your eyes up to new opportunities, and kind of all of that, all aside, just have some technical competence, right? Which is, all right, if you're great at sales, that's excellent. But you need to have some kind of technical skill there as well. A lot of people kind of, I'll talk my way through this. Don't be that dude. Really, really have some, whether it's building financial models, whether it's problem solving, but really problem solving, understanding economics and stuff like that. So don't dismiss any of that. Don't be dismissive, and work on yourself, man.
But isn't this notion of fake it till you make it, like a lot of people still believe that that's important in order to do it? Now, I think both of us have kind of been there when we've done stuff like that. But personal reflection on my part is that if I was to go back, I wouldn't do that. I would actually be happy in where I was in terms of the beginning of my journey. I wouldn't
Yeah.
try to be ahead of that, because as you get older, you realize there's just a lot of time,
Yeah.
and that you don't need to make people think that you're further down the road,
Then
because you
yeah.
actually end up missing out on a lot of opportunities because people might think you're actually further down the road.
Man, listen, fake it till you make it is, you know, it might feel good in the short term, but it very quickly comes and kicks you in the backside, man. So I don't believe you should. And I think a lot of people, in terms of, this is a mad one, right? But I've always had like a couple of friends who are like 10 years older than me. I think that everyone needs a group of friends who is at least 10 years, because having been there, done that, I think you need that kind of older brother, younger brother, like that whole, even the relationship I have with my brother, despite, okay, alhamdulillah, I've got successful businesses which he's a part of, he in many instances treats me like his older brother. But I always remind him that, no, bro, you're the older brother, right? And I think, you know, learning from him, and not him sitting down and saying, well, 1 + 1 = 2. No, it's just seeing what he's doing, just having that kind of older crowd around you has been unbelievably helpful for me. And it kind of makes you humble as well, because I think humility is kind of the backbone of people wanting to see you win, right? If you're faking it till you make it, if you're being a piece of crap and you're being horrible to people, it's going to catch up with you eventually, right? Some people, maybe they get away with it with their whole life, but very, very few. And I don't think it's a great place to be mentally. And you can't build a business on that anyway. So you might, I mean, I see like a lot of young people nowadays, especially, they're looking for quick wins, man. Like, oh, I'm going to set up this WhatsApp Telegram group and I'm going to send people signals to trade. And okay, fine, I don't know nothing about trading, but I'm going to sell this, right? And it might work. You might get people to do it. You know, I'm going to talk nonsense on Instagram or whatever it is, TikTok. It's very short term. You can't build businesses around that, right?
Yeah.
And I promise you that those things are very short lived, man.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting. It's like, even if you just take this particular podcast, 2 years I've been designing it. Now, 2 years is a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, it shouldn't have, in some respect, even taken 2 years.
Yeah.
But being so conscious of quality, and I hope that people enjoy, obviously, these conversations, but it's having a recognition that quality of a particular product or a conversation is so important that just doing something for the sake of doing it isn't strong enough today.
Yeah.
And I think that the more that, you know, younger people in this particular mode understand that they have time, they will absolutely have a lot more success in the long run than trying to get that overnight success, which just, to me, is actually a disease.
Oh man, I couldn't agree with you more, bro. Yeah, I get caught up in it as well, man. I'm like, wow, this guy bought what? He bought this car and he's this age? What's he doing? You know, I get caught up in it. I didn't do that when I was his age. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for the young people, man, just be careful, man. Like, you be careful. Don't believe it just because you see it. You know, like I know that's a mad thing to say, because it's like, you know, if I see it, I believe it. No.
Yeah.
There is usually a pretty normal explanation, which is someone somewhere is getting shafted, and that is not the way to build a business, a reputation, or any kind of continuation of, you know. You will get to, if you're 20, you will get to 30 very quickly, I promise you. When you're 30, you'll get to 40 very quickly, and so on and so forth. And inshallah, you get to see 50, 60, whatever. But, you know, like you said, man, you have time not to do the mad one, not to do the, I'm going to scam someone. And I promise, and this is the last thing I would say to those people, right? You know, like, I've seen people do absolutely insane things, which are, number one, haram, but number two, illegal, completely illegal. And we're talking like thousands of pounds, single digit thousands of pounds. I promise you, once you're married and you have kids, man, 5, 10, 50, none of this doesn't change anything, man. Like, so it's just not worth the risk. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Fahad, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really, really appreciate you taking out your time, coming and speaking to me, opening up and being honest, you know, and honest with anybody who listens to this. And I hope that people have enjoyed listening. You know, I've taken some really interesting and valuable advice from you, from your story, from your journey, all kind of framed in power and destiny and how that's played a part in your life. So, you know, thank you so much for coming.
Bro, it's an absolute pleasure, man. I didn't realize I was guest number one, so I hope I did what I was supposed to do, man.
No, it was brilliant. It was brilliant, and I'm sure that as we kind of continue these conversations, that we're going to have so many more.
Ya Rab, inshallah, man. Thank you so much, bro.
No,
really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care, bro.
Thank you.